Okay, Rhonda, can you hear me? Okay, Andrea can hear me. Ruth, thank you for joining us. Can you hear me?
Yeah, Joe can hear you.
All right, good. So we're good to go. So our presenter, Dr. Marcel Sargent, currently serves as the Vice President for Institutional Research and Effectiveness of Southwestern Adventist University. He's married to Dr. Mary Sargent. He knows what it is to live with autism, as one of his sons, who is a university student, lives with autism. Dr. Sargent began working at Southwestern Adventist University in 2002 and has served as a professor and chair and is currently serving as an administrator. In addition, he has served on several committees at all levels of the Seventh-day Adventist organization and has presented at numerous conferences nationally and internationally. He also serves as a site visitor for several programs and regional accreditation organizations. Before coming to Southwestern, he served as an educator in Illinois and a curriculum writer and teacher and a consultant for the Federal Department of Education on the beautiful island of St. Martin, and a science instructor at the University of St. Martin for 15 years. And so we're very happy that amidst his busy schedule, he has taken off the time this evening from his family to share with us. Dr. Sargent, welcome. We're thankful to you for being here with us. We go from 7 usually until 8, and so the time is yours. And what a joy I can see Amael. I hope I have it correctly this evening, all the way from the South Pacific joining us. Thank you. Please go ahead, Dr. Sargent. Thank you for being here with us.
Okay, sure enough. It's always, sometimes you listen to an introduction, you wonder who the person is talking to about. Okay, it's always great to to hang out with friends and I would say colleagues. I know Dr. Chichester from way back from childhood, so it's always great to connect again. Now, the one most important part I think in the introduction is the fact that, I have a kid that is living with autism, okay? And so I think that's my claim to fame. That's always a claim to fame because, it's not your lot, but it was given to you or it was given to us. Therefore, I always claim that, it's not something everyone could deal with. There's always challenges, but let's see where we go from here. Now, I would just say right now that I'm just going to present. I know that it says I wish 5 things I wish you knew that I knew about you. I don't remember the exact topic, but what I really wanted to talk about is 5 things I wish you knew about me. Okay. And that is in the context of a child who is living with autism. 5 things I wish I knew about me. It's a little correction there. Sorry, Dr. Chichester. It should have been 5 things I wish you knew about me. Now, it's always amazing, as I would say, that sometimes we run into individuals and they always will use words like your kid is autistic and so on and so forth. And sometimes you get a concern if this is new to you. Today we're not getting into diagnosis. Today we're just going to talk from a child with autism, living with autism, and trying to figure out as individuals what are some things that a child or someone living with autism will wish others knew about them. Now, there are 5 pointers I'm going to look at. and that's I'm a person. Also, my senses don't work like yours. I want you also to listen to my communication patterns. Also, I want you to take note of my triggers. And we all, some people, we call it triggers in the psychological space. People call it meltdowns. Okay. And last, love me without conditions. And that means love me unconditionally. And so the first part that I want to focus on, and let me just say, each point in itself is a discussion of its own. And maybe in the future we could take one, Dr. Chichester, and expand and also get feedback from individuals, so we all can know the fact that we're not alone. Now, one thing to realize, an individual living with autism is a whole person. And some of us have read Ellen Notebaum's work on autism, and she mentions 10 things, and all different folks mention a lot of things. And these are some basic pointers I think it's critical for us to understand from an individual with autism, right? Now, I'm a whole person, or I'm a person sometimes because of the how we may observe individuals that live with autism. We probably sometimes think that some part of this individual is missing, this child or this young adult or an adult, okay? And one thing that individuals living with autism would like us to know, that autism is just part of me, but not the whole me. And there's a difference between autism being me, or I'm being categorized as being autistic. I'm using the word loosely, but it's not the whole me. Okay, there is more to me than the various parts of meltdown, the various parts of stereotypic behavior, the various parts of me losing it, the various parts of me taking an object and twirling it in front of my face, or maybe banging my head against the wall in order to get stimulations, okay? But it's not the whole me. And one thing we need to realize, perception is always reality. And as individuals, if we choose to believe a child's autism may be the single biggest factor affecting its ultimate outcome, what is going to happen? We are going to realize that in the life of the individual. We always use the saying, perception is reality. So if you say a child, an individual suffering with autism is not a whole person, there are parts of the puzzle missing, what is going to happen? We'll have a false perception of that individual. God made us all. Yeah, let me just back up there. We were all created because of sin. Lots of things enter the earth. And so, like that, we don't have perfect individuals. None of us is perfect. I mean, even if you're not struggling with autism, there is no one among us that is without sin. We only could be counted righteous in Christ. So that's something we all need to remember. As I said, what you choose to believe about a child's or an individual's autism may be the single biggest factor affecting that individual's ultimate outcome. It's almost like a self-fulfilling prophecy. If, many of you working with, you have kids that have that are struggling with autism. If we say that this child or this individual will come to no good, that would be a self-fulfilling prophecy. In the sense, you wouldn't do the things necessary in order to make that child or that individual grow to his or her full potential. Um, and sometimes when we talk to autism, sometimes people stereotype individuals that suffer from autism and they will call them autistic. I know that here is where we're stereotyping and categorizing a person outside of them being a whole person. And so individuals suffering with autism or living with autism, it shouldn't be a kind of adjective that you would want to describe an individual. Like sometimes my kid is smart, my kid is creative, my kid is bright, my kid is I heard one today. My kid is lazy. But the interesting part is sometimes people think it's all right to say my kid is autistic. But individual living with autism, you don't want to characterize them as that. You need to say this is John, this is Mary, this is Malcolm, this is Isaac, it's not like this is my autistic son, Malcolm. This is my autistic daughter, Mary. This is, you should probably say, this is Malcolm. And as you can see, he has struggles, and all of us do, but he still or she is still a whole person. So I want us mostly to think about, our kids or individuals who are, dealing with autism or been diagnosed with autism. We still look at them as a whole person, and as an individual who we should allow to go through life without thinking in terms of they have missing parts. We know in psychology we talk about dissociated identity disorder, DID, in which various part of the personality is missing, okay, and or they're in fragments, for the want of a better word. But when you put all the pieces together, you get the whole individual. Just a note of caution, okay? Someone that is suffering with autism is still a whole person, whether we believe so or not. And they would want you to know that. Now, the other point I want to kind of look at, I'm just going to go through some factors, then I'm going to leave time for us to talk to the pointers I mentioned. And as I did proposing to Dr. Chichester, maybe we could examine some of these pointers in more detail at a later time. Another part of it that is always very interesting is that an individual suffering with autism would want us to know, my senses don't work like yours or like ours. My senses don't work like yours. And some of you would identify this readily. Sometimes crowded spaces may not be the good thing for them. Why? Because it's too much stimulation. And what's going on around me often makes me uncomfortable and even scared. So when I'm scared, what do? I probably go to my quickest defense mechanism. And so I act out, or as some will say, I have a meltdown. And that's like later on, we're going to talk about communication. That's the first go-to place in terms of letting individuals know that, hey, I'm not comfortable in the environment that I'm in. So, yes, I have senses too, and I want you to know that. But, it's a little different. You talk about sense of smell, sense of touch, sense of hearing, sense of seeing, and all the auditory pieces of the puzzle, but it's not where I use all my senses in the normal scheme of things in order for stimuli or stimulus to come in, then it goes to the brain, and then we're able to do all the great interpretations. My connective tissues are not connected in probably the way that others are connected, but eventually I probably get it, or I'll just stare at it and try to figure it out. And if I can't figure it out, I'm going to act up. And as parents or as supporters of individuals who are faced with autism, I'll just need to step in and help that individual. Now, I'm also very hypersensitive. Sometimes you would see individuals suffering with autism because of the tactile stimulus. You would see them probably with their ears against the wall, moving along, or they may be tapping to hear the song. My son had an interesting. I thought he was a drummer, but he never used the drums. He used the walls. And so by hitting on the walls or kicking it, it provided that type of tactile sensitivity that for him, it gave him great comfort. Why? When he does that, he gets attention. So these type of senses, yes, they don't work like us. Maybe I could say, hey, you need to stop by name, Giovanni, you need to stop, okay, hitting the wall, okay, but what does that mean? Okay, so before the cue will be once you see him close to the wall and the ear getting towards the wall or the head, you realize the next thing is going to happen is that the fists will hit the wall. So you're able to preempt and stop that kind of behavior. Of course, later on, you will need to replace that behavior with a more constructive behavior. Because of the hypersensitive tactile kind of behaviors, my defense mechanism kicks in. And whatever is going on in my mind, mark you, I do have a mind. It's just that you don't understand my mind. My brain works differently than yours. But we all have a brain, okay? I'm also very hyper acute, my hearing. So sometimes you may take your child, or you may be working with individuals and there'll be loud music. The once what you will see sometimes, they would want to take their fingers and place it in the ear. And that's why, from a training perspective, you're going to places like a ball game or wherever. Remember, they should still be part of the environment, get an experience. You will always want to go with noise cancellating headphones, and so that, you put that on, and so they could enjoy the game through visual, because most individuals that suffer with autism, yes, they learn through different types of senses, for using the word loosely, but the visual acuteness, that's the one in which they're able to see. You may think they're not understanding, they're just looking dazed, but stimuli definitely is still going through. So hyper acute hearing and also smell. Now, many of you know that in the home, things like fresh paint, ammonia, cleaning solutions, nail polish, and any, even lotion with high smell, you wouldn't want to take the lotion and if it's scented, rub it over their face or so on and so forth. It becomes a problem. And when their behavior most likely will be to hit your hand off, wipe their face from the lotion you have placed on them, and then you will want to pull their hand away. But we need to realize that the acute sense of smell could have a great impact why they're behaving like that. Even to the soap powder that you use, it should be senseless, smellless, or no deodorant. It should be neutral, because when you see them trying to take off their clothes, it's not that they're hot, but it's the smell. You may think it's smelling nice, bubblegum toothpaste and bubbles bad, that is bubblegum flavor, but you would want to make sure that you use things that are smell less, but is still able to do good hygiene for these kids. Also, visual distortion is a common feature in my life. Okay, visual distortions. As I said, a lot of stimuli comes through the visual. Okay, and so they're seeing lots of things that you're not even seeing. Okay, because they're of the hyper sensitivity to light going through the eyes. And so, like that, they could see distorted images. And by the way, this has nothing to do with hallucination or anything like that. It's just the visual distortions due to oversensitivity. Now, I want you to also know, do not neglect my sensory challenges, and you will never get close. No, let me say it this way. If you neglect my sensory challenges, you will never get close to discovering my capabilities. And I took that from Ellen's Notebaum's book. And I like this thought, when you don't know about something, it's good. But if you know about it, it's your challenge to be able to understand that my senses don't work like yours. But you still need to get close enough to me so that I could discover all the amazing things about my senses. Okay, now I know I'm going on. I'm just talking, then afterwards we'll come back and have some questions, okay? Now, one thing I want you to know as well, I want you to, once you figure out my communicative pattern, I want you to use that all the time. If you figure out how to listen to my patterns and understand me, please use that. Because it's hard for me to tell you what I need when I don't have a way to describe my thoughts and feelings. And sometimes when children or individuals with autism begin to act up, it frustrates us. And especially when they're around company, most likely we wouldn't want these individuals, when I say these individuals, or kids or individuals with autism to be around friends. We kind of set them aside when we should allow them to be part. But for some of us, it's easier to set them aside and so that we could interact with individuals who are just like us. But remember, an individual with autism is a whole person, okay? And so we should not put them to the side. You know, as I said, it's hard for me to tell you what I need when I don't have a way to describe my thoughts and feelings. Because as we all know, a majority of individuals with autism, they're nonverbal, okay? And so something I thought about, when you're doing artwork, you take a long time. You can't rush art. You know what that tells me? Don't rush me. Okay, I may take 2 hours to put my shirt on. I'm sorry, but it's going to take me 2 hours. So you could go do something else as opposed to try to put my shirt on and not pay attention to my needs. Remember, I have a functional communication method. So you figure that out for me, and then we'll be able to communicate real well. Okay? And by the way, don't ignore me. Acknowledge me. You know, if I say something, woohoo, that would be a great thing. You could acknowledge I said a few words and you could repeat those words and say, great job, Marcel. Do you want some orange or something like that, whatever the individual was saying? And remember, respond to conversations when expected. You know, sometimes we get busy and so we don't pay attention to responding. With individuals with autism, you have to pay keen attention to their verbal, more so their nonverbal. And when you see repetitive behaviors and you see where they become calm, etc., you will pick up that communication pattern. And don't treat them as though they don't understand. You still talk to them as normal individuals. Make expectations. You know, they may be sitting looking at you all days and you're picking their clothing up that they threw around. You could always say, Marcel, pick up your pants, and you pick the pant up. You don't have to move them, hold them, and get them involved in the process as you're doing it. You need to just do that. Speak to them normal. Make a request, even if they don't respond. Offer information. If you're going to get something, if you see the sign that Marcel is hungry and his favorite is crackers and peanut butter. Oh, Marcel, I'm going to make you some peanut butter crackers or something. You got to be verbal with it. And you move them in the direction so they could see what you're doing. Just as how you would sing and read for your normal kids, as some of us may want to refer to our kids that are not suffering with autism, remembering an individual suffering with autism is still a whole person, okay? Now, if you want to even do some dancing, even if you're dancing with yourself, put the music on, and you may see a little glitter in their eyes sometimes. You never know. Or the sound. And if they're putting their fingers up, go get the noise cancellating earphones or headphones, or turn the music down. Now, take note of my triggers. People use that word. These are things that cause us something to elicit fear or remind us of some unpleasant experience. But in the context of our discussion, understand my meltdowns. It's my way of saying, help me. Okay. And it's good if you catch it before, because you can't help, you can't um, circumvent a meltdown when a meltdown is taking place. All you need to do is move that individual to a safe place. The meltdown has to go through its cycles, and when the lull come, then is when you could, offer, or you could do like an intervention. But once the meltdown starts, it just got to go through. And remember, meltdowns are short. And if, for example, the environment is conducive to further escalation, it will. If you begin to scream and yell at me, I'm going to escalate even more. And so, learn to understand me. Help me. Please help me help myself out of bad situations. Okay. You have a better understanding of me. You could better control my environment. You could remove me from the environment that is causing my triggers or my meltdowns. Remember always that is not within my control. And sometimes, you would laugh. I mean, I laugh at this, but this is very true. It's not sometimes always within an individual suffering with autism control. And sometimes we would use words like, you're not supposed to do this. If they knew they were not supposed to do it, they will not do it. I don't make a conscious choice to have a meltdown. Okay, so don't think I'm just trying to make your life difficult. Now, we talked about sensory perceptions that could be triggering, physical and physiological having to do with, those senses we spoke about. And then emotional. This one is the one that is of greatest concern. And we may think sometimes, if we scream at them, we'll get them to come into compliance, or some people physically abuse to get into compliance. But just remember, these are just triggers, and it's always good if you could catch it before. Many times in the journey with working with kids with autism, we have to do lots of documenting. Parents know best how to identify potentials for meltdown, which people call triggers. Okay. Now, I want you, the last one, I want you to love me without condition. Don't love me if I behave good, but if I behave bad, still love me because I'm your child. Remember that it is happening to me, not you. I'll read that again, or I'll repeat that again. Remember that it is happening to me, not you. I need you to be strong for me. I need you to be there for me, be my guide, but don't force me. Okay, see how willing I am and work with me. Please love me for who I am without ifs or buts. Then you will see how far I can go. And this has to do with encouragement. The more you communicate or the more you demonstrate love towards individuals suffering with autism, it will go a long way. Now, one of the greatest tragedies that can befall a child, I'm thinking through here with autism, is to be surrounded by adults who think that autism is a tragedy and what do we do with tragedies? We avoid them like the plague, and we want to stay away. So if, for example, we say an individual with autism is a tragedy, what is going to happen? That self-fulfilling prophecy will happen. And so it will not give the individual permission to develop and make their own life independent of you. So, what I would want you to do definitely is to consider these points of views, and if you didn't get anything, I'm going to wrap up now so we could have some questions, give that individual permission to develop. And I'm using as though I'm the individual. Give me permission to develop and let me make my own life independent of yours. Coming out of that, scenarios I was talking about, taking that first person as being an individual with autism, I want us to look at it that, we who are supposed to be normal, sometimes dealing with individuals with autism brings out the monster in us. And that's because the knowledge is not there. It's some people could say, you could say whatever, but remember, I lived through this and I keep living through it. And sometimes you have to be so intentional to check yourself. That's what I call it, checking yourself, because if you don't, it will become a problem. Now, in closing, just remember the 5 things. I'm a person, I'm a whole person. My senses do not work exactly like yours, but they do work. Try to figure out my communication. I'm not giving it in any list, like an order. I'm just reflecting as I go here. Take note of those things that push me in the wrong direction. We call those triggers, okay? And love me without condition. In other words, don't put any ifs and buts and so on in front of your love for me, because I need your love. I'm going to stop there. Those were 5 things. And, I decided to use the I message like an individual suffering with autism, so you could have a better understanding of the way I feel. So I'm just going to stop. We have a few minutes, and as I told Dr. Chichester, we could develop these 5, in details, expand it out, and then, be able to have individuals respond, and then give strategies so that they can be able to get the support that they need. Okay, I'm going to stop there and turn it over to Dr. Chichester to kind of take up, lead out in the questioning side.
Thank you very much, Dr. Sargent. I was blessed. I noted I'm a person, my senses don't work like yours. Try to figure out my communication, take note of my triggers, and love me without condition. And we have just 20 minutes more of meeting time. And remember, this is a fellowship. This is our time. This is a safe space to ask questions, to share from our experiences as we journey together with individuals living with autism. And again, I just want to highlight that Amael is with us, and it must be at least about 3 or 4 a.m. in the morning where she is at this point in time. We're out in the South Pacific Ocean, but she's one of our faithful attendees and is passionate about helping individuals living with autism. And Dr. Mary Patterson who is Dr. Sargent's wife, is actually here with us also. I appreciate it of you taking the time out to be with us. So any questions, any reactions, now is the time as we share together. And then we'll wrap up with prayer. And you could read.
Good evening, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, great. My name is Dr. Peterson, and I am an educator as well as a mom, and I've worked with children with autism in the field. And I have children with autism who lives in my home. And so I really appreciate this conversation. One thing I wanted to say is that those 5 things that my husband shared are really important. And I think they're even applicable to kids without autism. And if we treated all children in this way, even kids who have not been identified would be treated properly. That's just my opinion about that. And the second thing is I believe my husband said something about not calling kids with autism or who are on the spectrum autistic. And I have heard in the social media and working with students that they prefer neurodivergent. And I don't know if you guys have heard that term as well, and if you use it, but I believe neurodivergent is the proper terminology. Someone could educate me more on that.
Yeah, neurodivergent is the word, but it's still, it's like, oh, I'm neurodivergent. We still wouldn't want to label kids, but that's the word, that's the general heading. We place all, disabilities, learning disabilities, any other disabilities, but more so those, before you used to call it autism spectrum disorder, ASD, but now we refer to those even anxiety on the psychological scale as neurodivergent, whereas like reading and all the learning, we call those still learning disability because those are educational. But anything that works with the mind, we call those neurodivergent, even if, for example, you have anger and and all the depressive behaviors. We still, of late we find good terminology to say the same thing that is less stereotypic, but of course, as I said, we wouldn't want to say, there is my new neurodivergent kid.
Yeah, I've seen though on with young adults, they actually identify themselves that way. Like it's not a diss or a put down for them. They say a person who is or a person with, because as you said in your presentation, they are a person first, a whole person. And with any disability, it's always the person first. So I was just wondering what other people thought about the terminology. So thank you, Dr. Sargent.
Yeah, and the good thing about it's okay for me to call myself stupid or dumb, but I wouldn't want someone else to do it. So, and even with some individuals, if they say, well, I'm autistic, it's fine because they're identifying. But they could call themselves autistic, but we wouldn't want to call them autistic still. It's just one of those things. But
So
if they
then how do we identify?
as you rightly said, like neurodivergent, if they say, call me autistic, well, hey, you want me to call you autistic, I will call you autistic, because that's how they identify. But we just don't want to stereotypically start labeling, except they have accepted and they want to be referred to as lots of us had names before. We have sweet names, call names, and they're given upon us, but we don't like them. So this is a similar situation. But if we wholeheartedly accept it, then there's no harm.
All right. Other questions? Yes, I am acquainted that that is where the literature is. In fact, Dr. Elizabeth Pooley, who was one of the co-directors before me, her dissertation, of which I was one of her advisors and a member of her defense council, is on the children with neurodiversity. So, yes, that is where the literature is. When our fellowship was created by her, actually, it carried this name, and it's an ongoing discussion that one day we may change the title of it. Amael, your hand is up. Go right ahead.
Thank you so much. Well, first of all, thank you for having me here with you. It's always a pleasure. I'm very grateful. And thank you, Dr. Sargent. It's very insightful, and it's very good to be reminded of these principles. And second thing, please, it's the wee hours of the morning here. So please, my mother tongue is French. At this time of the day, I'm not able to think both in English and French, but I'll try my best. I wanted to say, as a parent of a child living with autism, I just wanted to react about something that Dr. Sargent said. It's true that it can, as a parent or caregiver, it can bring out the monster in us. But I've also seen that it can also, by God's grace, bring out the very best in us. I'm thinking about Helen Keller and what she said, that we would never learn to be brave and patient if there was only like easy things in the world. And I think it's a blessing for me. Having Raphael has been one of my greatest, all my children, I mean, are great blessings. But maybe in terms of character development, it has helped me a lot to become more patient, more loving, more understanding toward others. And it's God's promise in the Bible that He would take out the heart of stone and give us a heart of flesh. And I think it's also it also contributes to that. I mean, it teaches us a lot of things, and definitely how to become a much better understanding and loving person indeed. Also, in terms of communicative patterns and triggers, just wanted to ask more of a question, because my whole purpose of attending these sessions is to be able to develop a ministry in Mauritius, because currently, and I'm not just talking about SDA churches, but in no Christian denomination, I mean, in no Christian church in Mauritius, actually, at the moment, there is no ministry at all for people with special needs and their families. So what would be a way, considering people living with autism and their own challenges in terms of communication, and triggers? And I know it's a vast question, but what would be a good way to start an integration in church, considering that churches themselves are a place where there are a lot of triggers, and I'm myself in the worship team in the church that I attend, so I know there's a lot of noise and a lot of triggers, but what would be, because I'm trying very hard with God's help to start something in churches, so getting people motivated is very hard at the moment, but I guess if we could come up with very concrete solutions for churches to be able to implement that would be greatly helpful. Thank you.
Okay, Amali, that makes a lot of sense, the specifics. I'll probably need to talk to Dr. Chichester, so to give him, to let's come up with a list of things. Because remember, we said triggers are not only emotional, it's physical, it's physiological. And so we would want to create an environment that is proof, in the want of a better word. And so in churches, they should be, as we said, noise cancellating headphones. Then we still have the problem with the visual stimulus that comes out. And so here is where we're talking about if you want to enjoy church, parents to enjoy church, we need to have like a room devoid of stimulations, lots of it needs to be plain. Okay. And having a room that is specific, and I know probably some people are saying, well, we'll have a lot of issues in that room, but the less stimulating the headphones, it will be a great start. And if, for example, these individuals could tolerate individuals around, they could be in the church, they could have the noise cancellating headphones. We put dark shades on, it will be fashionable. And so like that, the sensory stimulus could be lessened. Now, I had promised way back to work on some stuff for you. My apologies. I got sidetracked by my wife, Dr. Peterson. I'm just kidding with her here. But I did also, I'm just letting you, I was waiting to get your address and I don't think I got it. So if you could communicate that to Dr. Chichester, because I have resources for you. It's in English. And I have some basic tests that you could use. It's very basic. I was trying to Google translate it to French, but I didn't get the time to do it. So I could just send those to you, and they're like 3, depending on the little ones, the middle age and older, and you'll be able to use it. You don't have to be an expert, and you could always communicate back if there's one that is like a little troubling that you're not sure of, and then we could do the reverse. When it's daytime and it's night, I'll be happy to, and I know Dr. Peterson has experience where that is concerned in the educational pieces. We could probably stay up like 2 a.m, which is daytime, your time, and we'll do the reverse. So then we could even observe like some and provide some. I'll give you that commitment from my part so that we could, develop something that works for you.
All right, we have just 6 minutes of time left. We can take one more question. What I'm beginning to move towards, Amael, with our administrators, is to bring in someone to talk to all of our pastors to begin educating them about the whole issue of neurodiversity. And Dr. Elizabeth Pooley actually wrote an article for we don't say union here in Canada, we say the Seventh-day Adventist Church in Canada. One of our union, one issue of the union magazine was dedicated to the whole issue of neurodiversity. I could try to locate that for you and have Dr. Shinigadu get it to you, or I can get it to you. But we're moving in that direction where sometime next year, with the administration working along with me on it, or I'm working along with them, we're going to have someone present to all of our pastors. That's step number 1, to begin to educate them to understand, well, these are the challenges, these are the areas they need to be aware of as they work with families with children who are living with autism and other issues, other challenges. And these 5 points are tremendous points. So depending on, on the time availability, it could even be Dr. Sargent doing the presentation, but we're working in that direction. And that may be something you may want to look into, depending on his time and his dear wife time and their busy schedule. Perhaps they can, as he said, do presentations for you, or even if time permits, get down to the island itself to meet with educators there, and so begin to develop the whole area of informing them, because I find with education, then it opens up doors of possibilities in terms of changing the perception of people and helping them to realize that these are whole persons also.
And I would just add quickly to that offer we're making. I know Mary is smiling at it. I'll just say find a place to stay, and we'll find the airfare to get there. I'm talking to, we will, because your island is very beautiful. I kind of look and see where it is. The airfare is very expensive, but I work at the university, so we could figure that out. And I'll probably send Dr. Peterson, and she'll tell me how good it was, and then we could connect. Stay up in the night, and however we can help you, Emily, we'll be happy to do that.
Thank you so much.
I just wanted to say I was excited to hear you talk about the ministry of serving individuals at your church who have the neurodiversity, because that's so important. And I just started popping in my head about what, and I know that Dr. Chichester and Dr. Sargent can come up with some really great ideas, and maybe I could lend some help as a parent, and having had a child who has not been identified but has had some behaviors where I've had to adjust and learn and research and read about these particular patterns, because people can give bad advice when you're a parent and your child is acting out in church. Just terrible advice because they don't understand. And I think understanding is paramount when you're dealing with a child or a teenager who has these different response to everything. So I'm excited for that ministry you're beginning there.
All right, we're going to pray because a number of our parents need to go by a certain time in order to get the children to bed. I am so happy to have our able secretary here with us this evening, Ruth Widener. Ruth, would you mind giving us the closing prayer, please?
Okay, let's pray. Heavenly Father, thank you for the way you made each and every one of us. You don't make mistakes, but we just need to learn how to be able to help each other, how to be able to facilitate and be a strength and a support to parents. Thank you for those that are online here, and Father, I pray that you would bless each one. Thank you for our time together in Jesus' name. Amen.
And as you go, our next meeting will be the third Sunday in November. We'll be having Melanie from the sensory room and her husband. They'll be doing the presentations. Ruth and I actually went to the sensory room to pay a site visit some time ago, and we were impressed with the resources they have there and the facilities to help families living with autism and dealing with neurodiversity. So they've consented to do the presentation. Please join us at 7 p.m. Again, we will close by 8. It's going to be the third Sunday in November, which is the 17th of November at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. Thanks, everybody. Have yourself a great week. May God richly bless you as you minister to and work along with children with neurodiversity. And again, let's put our hands together or wave or WhatsApp or your electronic hand for Dr. Marcel Sargent and for the great presentation he's done for us this evening. Thank you very much, Doc.
Okay. Good night, everyone.
And Amael, please send us your I think she's gone. Okay, we'll write her. Good night, everyone.